and the king of the underworld prepared a grand wedding to welcome his new queen. He remained on guard, expecting the woman who had been by his side for 1,000 years to cause a scene. But he never could have dreamed that she had already been reincarnated. She never showed up, even after the ceremony ended. When he came out in his wedding robes, he instinctively looked toward the door. "Your Majesty, please rest assured, we've stationed hundreds of guards at every entrance. She won't be able to get in." The man nodded slightly. Holding his wedding wine, he glanced at the door again. There were many guests coming and going to offer congratulations, but Fuyu was nowhere to be seen. It seemed she had finally learned to behave this time. Fuyu wasn't until he was in his chambers and saw the reincarnation list that he realized my name was prominently on it. Everyone in the underworld knew that King Xie Huai Chuan had a wife he cherished deeply, whom he had doted on for 1,000 years. Her name was Fuyu. Once I fell gravely ill, Xie Huai Chuan didn't hesitate to enter the river of forgetfulness, exhausting half his cultivation to gather snow lotuses for my medicine. Even before entering the underworld, Xie Huai Chuan's life was sacrificed for me. After his death, his soul returned to the underworld, but he refused to drink the soup of forgetfulness. He just stood stubbornly on the road to the afterlife, waiting for me. When others asked why he wouldn't reincarnate, "I have to wait for Au. In life, I was hers, and in death, I am her ghost." It wasn't until decades later, when my soul entered the underworld, that Xie Huai Chuan had become the formidable king of the underworld. He gave me the grandest wedding to make me his wife. From then on, in the underworld, whether lonely ghosts or minor officials, everyone envied us as a perfect couple. During countless intimate nights, Xie Huai Chuan would lean in and whisper in my ear. He said, "Au, we must never be separated, life after life." I never doubted his sincerity. It's just that sincerity is always fleeting and changeable. A month ago, I discovered Xie Huai Chuan had hidden a woman in a remote corner of the underworld. Every time he made an excuse to handle business, he was actually going to be with her. Without realizing it, that woman had already taken up most of Xie Huai Chuan's time. I gave a bitter laugh, knowing it was time for me to leave. "Miss, do you really want to put your name on the record of reincarnation? Once you sign and enter the cycle, there's no possibility of regret." Fuyu, the official recorded the name Fuyu in the record of reincarnation. 7 days, I would enter the gate of rebirth. After that, the person known as Fuyu would no longer exist. I turned to leave. "Wait, Fuyu, you're the king's wife, Fuyu." Returning to Juseng Palace, I took out a letter of divorce. I wrote my name down, stroke by stroke. Even though Xie Huai Chuan is now the king of the underworld, and wouldn't be bound by this letter at all, I still wrote it according to custom. Since the promise to be together forever was being broken, this was my way of closing that chapter. Just as I finished the last stroke, I heard the sound of someone approaching quickly. Xie Huai Chuan was back. He smiled and hugged me from behind, his voice sounding a bit tired. "Au, what are you writing?" The hand holding my pen trembled slightly. I pretended to be calm and used a new sheet of paper to cover the divorce letter. Xie Huai Chuan sensed something was off. He coaxed me gently. I'm sorry, Au. Some evil ghosts were causing trouble on the road to the afterlife today. I went to handle it, so I'm back late." I didn't expose his lie. After all, I had just come back from that road myself. It was perfectly peaceful there. There were no evil ghosts to speak of. Xie Huai Chuan smiled and took out a hairpin. He slowly brushed through my long hair. His tone was so gentle it was almost suffocating. "You. Don't be unhappy. Let me do your hair all right." I remained silent, feeling him lean over to carefully style my hair. But in that moment, the scent of jasmine wafted over me. I turned slightly to look, and beneath Xie Huai Chuan's collar, there was a small red hickey. In the underworld, where nothing grows, where would the scent of jasmine come from? Xie Huai Chuan must have gone to the mortal realm, carrying a large bouquet of jasmine to please someone. I only took a quick glance, but I saw that conspicuous mark. If that was hidden under his clothes, what about the places I couldn't see? He probably just came from Lin Lingshuan's bed. The light in my eyes gradually faded. The truly painful part is that in the moments I thought I was happy, the other person had already changed their heart, while I was still lost in the illusion. Happiness. It's so hard to tell what's real. Xie Huai Chuan didn't notice my reaction at all. He gently tucked the hairpin into my hair. His eyes were full of love, and he praised me sincerely. Ayu, your skin is fairer than snow. You look beautiful. I forced a slight smile. I covered his eyes with one hand, and with the other, I folded the divorce letter, holding it out in front of him. I have a gift for you. Just promise me you won't look at it until 7 days have passed. Xie Huai Chuan smiled and held my hand, agreeing immediately. Okay, whatever Ayu says. I looked into his smiling eyes. But in my heart I thought, in 7 days, the person known as Fuyu will no longer be in this world. The next day, Xie Huai Chuan pushed aside all his duties, excitedly wanting to take me to see fireworks. The mortal realm was bustling and prosperous, so much better than the cold, gloomy underworld. A rare look of excitement appeared on my face. If it weren't for Xie Huai Chuan, I would never have stayed in such a lonely, desolate place. But now, never mind. Xie Huai Chuan shielded me as we walked through the crowds, occasionally turning to adjust my hairpin. A little girl selling flowers ran up to us, beaming with a smile. Big brother, buy a bouquet for this pretty sister. I wish you 100 years of harmony and eternal love. I was stunned for a moment, just as I was about to refuse. Xie Huai Chuan was already smiling and picking out flowers. He chose carefully for a long time, and finally decided to generously buy them all. Wait, hang out of my days. Snapping out of my daze, I spoke up to stop him. What's wrong? Ayu, do you not like them? I nodded, my voice flat. I don't like jasmine. Xie Huai Chuan's face suddenly stiffened. His pupils contracted slightly, and his expression became unnatural. He forced a smile, his expression rigid. Ayu, didn't you used to love jasmine the most? Why now, all of a sudden? I felt a sharp pain in my heart. Once, to make me happy, he planted a whole courtyard of jasmine for me. Now, to please Lingered, he goes to the mortal realm to get her a bouquet. In that moment, I really wanted to ask him, when he gave Lingered those flowers, did he feel even a moment of guilt toward me? Before I could speak, a delicate-looking official rushed out from behind him, slamming hard into me. I didn't even have time to dodge. Before I was knocked to the ground, I sat on the ground, my ankle twisted and badly swollen. My hand was also scraped and bleeding. I looked a complete mess. Even that hairpin fell crookedly onto the ground. The official shot me a triumphant glance, then looked at Xie Huai Chuan. My lord, there's trouble with evil ghosts in the netherworld hell. Please come and handle it. Xie Huai Chuan frowned, aiming a blast of power at the official. But he suddenly pulled it back when he saw who it was. My gaze sharpened. I recognized this official. It was Lingered. She was dressed as a man, which only made her face look more fair and jade-like. She looked incredibly delicate. Xie Huai Chuan picked me up with a look of distress, but his eyes were guilty. He said very unnaturally, Ayu, you go ahead and look around on your own. I have to go take care of this. Hearing his words, I lowered my eyes, hiding my injured hand behind my back. I replied calmly, okay, I can find my own way back. Xie Huai Chuan wiped the dust from my face with a look of pity. He turned and scolded Lingered. Be more careful next time. If you hurt Ayu again, I will certainly take your life. After speaking, he gave me a guilty glance. He leaned over to pick up the hairpin that had fallen to the ground. But before he could reach it, a group of children ran past, laughing. The crowd was crowded and chaotic. In the next instant, the hairpin vanished into the vast sea of people. Xie Huai Chuan's face showed a hint of displeasure. He wanted to go look for the hairpin himself. But Lingered suddenly tugged at his sleeve. Her voice was soft and sweet. My lord, if we don't go now, it'll be too late. She wasn't even bothering to disguise her voice anymore. She had a look of blatant seduction on her face. Xie Huai Chuan frowned. He roughly brushed off Lingered's hand. His tone turned cold. If you don't get lost right now, I'll kill you. He was channeling his spiritual power in his hand. With just that one move, Lingered's fair arm became red and swollen. A flash of resentment crossed Lingered's face. Then she pouted aggrievedly, turned around and left. Once she had disappeared, Xie Huai Chuan's expression finally softened as he looked at me. He lowered his voice tenderly. "Ayo, go ahead and look around for a bit. I'll be right back." I nodded indifferently, signaling for him to go. Xie Huai Chuan stroked my hair with eyes full of love. Then he ordered 2 of his men to stay and help me find the hairpin. His eyes turned cold again. "This hairpin is a token of love between you and me. You must find it." Hearing his words of deep affection, I sneered in my heart. He had clearly lost his heart long ago, so why bother acting like he still cared? Watching Xie Huai Chuan's figure gradually disappear, I followed him silently until I saw Xie Huai Chuan catch up with Lin Lingxuan and pull her into his arms. Xie Huai Chuan's tone was slightly stern. "You shouldn't have appeared in front of you." Lin Lingxuan, dressed as a servant, had reddened eyes. She lightly pounded on Xie Huai Chuan's chest. Her tears fell one by one. Her tone was incredibly pitiful. "I just missed you so much. That's why I came to see you. How can you be so heartless? Look, I'm wearing this servant's uniform. Don't I look exotic?" Lin Lingxuan pouted and held her swollen arm up to his eyes. A glimpse of hazy gauze was visible at her cuff. Xie Huai Chuan's Adam's apple bobbed. His eyes darkened. "Don't you want to see what I'm wearing underneath? I'm sure you'll like it." Her teasing words became increasingly suggestive. Xie Huai Chuan grabbed her arm, his eyes gradually filling with lust. His words were flirtatious. "It couldn't be that servant's undergarments." Lin Lingxuan giggled and buried her head in his chest, acting coquettishly. "You're so bad." The 2 of them laughed and flirted as they entered a secluded hall in the underworld. Their entwined shadows were cast upon the window, and I stood outside, listening to the sounds of passion from within. I watched as Xie Huai Chuan kept kissing Lingxuan's injured hand. Meanwhile, a piercing pain came from my ankle. I looked down. It was so swollen, it no longer looked like its original shape. I had already decided to enter reincarnation and forget the past. But at this moment, my heart was filled with bitterness. A tear unknowingly slid down my face. The sounds of passionate moaning drifted from the hall. I covered my ears in pain, but I couldn't block out the sound. It pierced into my mind, like a sharp knife stabbing into my heart. The pain was bone deep. It was nothing more than this. I endured the pain in my ankle and limped away. My neatly styled hair was now a mess. The hairpin was gone. My ankle was sprained and swollen. I looked absolutely wretched. I suppressed my grief and desperately comforted myself. This would be the last time I cried for him before leaving. When I walked back to Juseng Hall in a daze, the 2 men Xie Huai Chuan had left behind were waiting for me with the hairpins. As my gaze fell upon the hairpin, I suddenly remembered the year Xie Huai Chuan proposed to me. His face was flushed red. He looked embarrassed. Yet he stubbornly looked at me, his tone sincere. "You, I will treat you well for all my lives." I looked at him, and my heart skipped a beat. From then on, he fulfilled his promise wholeheartedly. He did everything I said seriously. He would always stand in front of me when there was danger. In the end, he even to protect me. Now, the hairpin has not faded, but the man who made the vow has long become a stranger. I shook my head with a smile. When I spoke again, my tone had returned to normal. "I don't want it anymore. I don't want the hairpin that served as our token of love. Xie Huai Chuan, I don't want you anymore either." I didn't fall into a heavy sleep until late. That's when Xie Huai Chuan returned. He lay down quietly and carefully took me into his arms. I kept my eyes closed and pretended to sleep. In the next instant, while holding my cold hand, he cast a spell to warm up the hall. In a half-dreaming state, I felt Xie Huai Chuan almost reverently place my cold hand against his chest to warm it. Drowsiness washed over me. I couldn't resist it and fell into a deep sleep. When I woke up again, the space beside me was empty. Xie Huai Chuan was no longer there. A maid nearby respectfully approached me and explained, "The King of Hell has been quite busy these past few days." I nodded indifferently. As for whether he was truly busy or going to accompany Lin Lingxuan. It really didn't matter to me anymore. During these few days, I was busy packing up the things in the hall. Xie Huai Chuan had given me many things. There were novel trinkets and gifts he had painstakingly made himself. A small rabbit-shaped lantern, incense he had blended himself, and a concentric knot I had woven by hand. I packed them all into a box and then burned them all to ashes. Just as the fire died down, Xie Huai Chuan pushed open the door. He asked suspiciously, "You, what are you burning? Why is there such a strong smell?" I smiled. "Nothing. Just some useless items, that's all." Xie Huai Chuan nodded. He looked around the hall and noticed that many things were missing. "In a few days, I'll buy you some new things to cheer you up." I didn't answer, but in my heart, I felt a sense of anticipation. In a few days, I will be completely free. I will no longer have to stay in this boring underworld, waiting for Xie Huai Chuan day after day. Time was short. I managed to burn everything within a few days. Coincidentally, my birthday and the day I enter reincarnation actually fall on the same day. That day, Xie Huai Chuan held a banquet in the underworld. He ordered singers and dancers to perform to please me. As the music started, the dancer who appeared was none other than Lin Lingxuan. She was dressed as a Hu dancer. The fiery red gauze dress made her skin look as white as snow. Gold ornaments hung from her hem, jingling as she moved. Her eyes blended the softness of the south with the exoticism of the west. She looked incredibly charming. Her flowing sleeves rose lightly, and her waist swayed gracefully. Her body seemed as soft as if she had no bones. When she spun, her gauze dress fluttered like butterfly wings. She performed the rainbow-feathered garment dance exquisitely. All the lonely ghosts in the hall were mesmerized. Even the candles burning in the hall seemed to flicker gently with her dance steps. But Xie Huai Chuan remained indifferent throughout. His gaze never lingered on Lin Lingxuan for a second. He only stared at me without blinking. His eyes filled with an inseparable love. It was as if all the prosperity and music in the hall couldn't compare to a single smile on my face. His fingertips lightly tapped the table, his eyes following my every move. Even his movements in pouring wine slowed down. A gentle smile played on his lips. It seemed that as long as I smiled, all the glory of the underworld could be offered to me. Lin Lingxuan danced exceptionally well. A final spin to end the dance. Dropping to one knee, the flowing sleeves spread out like a blooming red lotus. Thunderous applause instantly erupted throughout the hall. Even the little ghosts outside the hall couldn't help but peer through the door. They clicked their tongues in wonder. I followed the crowd and smiled faintly, raising my hand to clap softly. My fingertips rested on the jade cup upon the low table. A slight chill spread from my fingertips. Yet my heart remained completely untroubled. Seeing me smile, Xie Huai Chuan's eyes instantly lit up. He looked almost dazed for a moment, then shouted out clearly, "Rewards! Since you managed to make Ayu smile, everyone in this hall, I shall be rewarded." With a grand wave of his hand, little ghosts brought forth gold and jewels, distributing the underworld's treasures one by one. He was acting quite lavishly, all to win my favor, just as he had done every time over the past 1,000 years. Hearing this, Lin Lingxuan slowly stood up. A delicate smile played on her face, her voice as crisp as a bell. She bowed deeply toward Xie Huai Chuan. "Thank you for the reward, my lord. Today is Lady Fuyu's birthday. This servant wishes to pour wine for the lady, to wish her a life free of worries, and 100 years of harmony with my lord." As she spoke, she picked up the wine pot, walking toward my table with graceful, light steps. Hearing her voice, Xie Huai Chuan seemed to snap out of it. His brow furrowed imperceptibly, his gaze falling upon Lin Lingxuan, with a hint of hidden shock. It seemed he had only just realized the dancer who performed was her. It was actually her. Subconsciously, he wanted to stop her, his lips twitching slightly. But he was a step too late. Before Xie Huai Chuan could speak, Lin Lingxuan was already standing before me with the wine pot. She leaned down slightly, the spout of the pot aimed at my jade cup. I looked down at her, my gaze indifferent. With just one look, I recognized the jade hairpin tucked into her hair. It was made of fine suet jade, the head carved into a blooming jasmine. The texture was delicate, the craftsmanship exquisite. That was a design Xie Huai Chuan had drawn himself. 1,000 years ago, he had carved an identical one for me, saying he wanted the jasmine to bloom forever. And that year after year, we would always be together. But that jasmine hairpin of mine had long ago been lost in the bustling alleys of the mortal world, lost in the vast sea of people. Yet this one was worn in Lin Lingshuan's hair. Lin Lingshuan kept her eyes down, her long lashes hiding the scheming look in her eyes. She leaned in close to me, her warm breath brushing against my ear. In a voice only the two of us could hear. Word by word, she spoke with words dipped in poison. Lady Fuyu, you truly are fortunate. The lord of the underworld dotes on you so much. But did you know? My hands are a bit shaky today. Please bear with me, my lady. If you must blame someone, blame Huai Chuan. Her voice was soft, yet it carried a bone-chilling mockery. Her fingers gripped the handle of the wine pot, shaking it slightly. The liquid inside swirled gently. Just now, while you were asleep in Juseng Hall. He was on the bed in the side hall, taking me 3 times. I really am a bit exhausted. When he held me, he said, and making love to me near Juseng Hall was exceptionally passionate. I suppose thinking you were nearby made it all the more flavorful. My fingertips curled slightly. My knuckles gripping the jade cup turned white. The wine in the cup rippled, reflecting the coldness in my eyes. 1,000 years of companionship, the tenderness of whispered intimacies, the promises of lifetime after lifetime. Through her words, they were shattered into pieces, as if it wasn't enough. Lin Lingshuan continued. Oh right. He also said, he loves my supple body the most. Soft as cotton, holding me in his arms, he wished he could just die in my bed. Lady Fuyu, you've been with him for 1,000 years. Huai Chuan probably. And never used those tricks with you. After all, he told me in private that your personality is too cold and utterly boring. You don't even bother to smile at him. How could you compare to my vibrant spirit? She looked up, her eyes full of pride and provocation. She stared straight at me, as if admiring my wretched state. Guess what? Will he leave with you later? Staying to celebrate your birthday? Or will he, like countless times before, find an excuse to sneak off to the side hall to find me? When Lin Lingshuan finished speaking, the triumph in her eyes nearly overflowed. She looked into my eyes and intentionally jerked her finger. The wine pot tilted, and the amber liquid splashed out, spilling entirely onto my moon-white skirt, leaving a large, glaring wet stain. The scent of wine mixed with the heavy jasmine fragrance on her, wafting toward me, making me feel nauseous. The sudden turn of events caused the cheers in the hall to stop abruptly. Everyone's eyes were focused on us. Even the air seemed to freeze. Xie Huai Chuan reacted quickly. Almost instinctively, he raised his hand, striking Lin Lingshuan's wine pot with a sharp burst of power. The pot was instantly sent flying, shattering into dust as it hit the ground. But the wine had already soaked my robe. The cool sensation clung to my skin, carrying a bone-chilling coldness. He stood up abruptly, his brow tightly furrowed, his face so dark it looked like it could drip water. He barked at Lin Lingshuan. Are you looking for death? The fury in that voice was enough to consume someone. The pressure of the king of hell quietly spread out. The little ghosts in the hall all trembled in fear, kneeling on the ground one after another, not even daring to raise their heads. Lin Lingshuan seemed terrified. Her eyes instantly filled with tears. Her legs went weak, and she immediately fell to her knees, pitifully begging Xie Huai Chuan for mercy. My lord, please forgive me. This servant didn't do it on purpose. My hand slipped. I didn't hold the pot steadily. And I offended Lady Fuyu. Please spare this servant just this once. She cried like a pear blossom in the rain, her shoulders trembling slightly. She looked utterly fragile. Anyone who saw her would feel a sense of pity. I watched without saying a word. my fingertips lightly brushing the wet robe. My eyes were perfectly calm. As if the person soaked in wine wasn't me. As if this farce before me had nothing to do with me. Xie Huai Chuan looked at me. Then at Lin Lingxuan, kneeling and begging for mercy. The anger in his eyes was mixed with a hint of hidden panic. He opened his mouth. But in the end, he didn't scold her again. He simply waved his hand and said coldly to the ghosts behind him, "Take her away. 20 strokes of the cane. Confine her to the side hall. Without my orders. She is not allowed to come out." This punishment was as light as a slap on the wrist. A flash of resentment crossed Lin Lingxuan's eyes. Yet she still bowed submissively. "Thank you for your mercy, my lord." She was then escorted by the ghosts, looking back with every step as she left the hall. Before leaving, she didn't forget to cast a provocative glance my way. Not long after, Xie Huai Chuan walked over to my side. He leaned down slightly, leaning into my ear. His tone was full of remorse. His fingertips lightly brushed my wet robe. With a touch of caution, "Ayu, I'm sorry. It's my fault for not watching her and letting you suffer this grievance. I just received news that evil ghosts are rioting in the depths of the silent hell. Many underworld guards are injured. I have to go handle it first. I'll be back soon to be with you." Another excuse like this. Over 1,000 years. He had used such excuses to leave me countless times. I used to believe him. I believed he was the king of hell, burdened with heavy responsibilities. I believed he had me in his heart and was simply caught in circumstances. But now, I have long since seen through it. All that so-called busy official business. It was just a pretext for him to see Lin Lingxuan. Those so-called unavoidable circumstances were nothing more than perfunctory excuses after his heart had changed. "Go ahead." Before he could even finish speaking, I cut him off. My voice was flat, devoid of any emotion. My gaze fell upon the red lanterns outside the hall. They hung high, reflecting against the night sky of the underworld. Yet they couldn't warm the chill deep in my heart. Xie Huai Chuan froze for a moment. He seemingly didn't expect me to agree so readily. A flash of surprise crossed his eyes, followed by a forced smile appearing on his face. He gently pinched my cheek with his fingertips. His tone was tender. "Be good. Watch the music and dancing here for a while. Try some snacks. Wait for me. I'll be right back. I'll bring you the freshest wax apples from the banks of the river Lethe. Your favorite." I looked into his eyes quietly. Those eyes that were once filled with tenderness and love now hid panic and perfunctoriness. I could no longer find the sincerity of the past. I looked at him and then let out a soft laugh. The laughter was very light, yet it was exceptionally clear in the silent hall. It carried a hint of relief, a hint of mockery, and a hint of heartache that no one could understand. "I'm not waiting anymore." I looked at him, word by word, and said clearly, "From now on, I won't wait anymore." These words were like a needle, stabbing ruthlessly into Xie Huai Chuan's heart. He felt a sudden, inexplicable panic. A flash of unease, which he didn't even notice himself, flickered in his eyes. His chest felt as if it were blocked by something. It felt suffocatingly tight. He opened his mouth, wanting to say something more, wanting to make me stay. But the words reached his lips, only to be swallowed back down. He forcibly suppressed that touch of unease, assuming I was just angry and throwing a little tantrum. He raised his hand, wanting to stroke my hair again, to coax me as he had countless times before. But I tilted my head slightly, avoiding his touch. Xie Huai Chuan's hand froze in midair. The guilt in his eyes deepened. In the end, he didn't stay any longer. He sheepishly said, "Wait for me to come back," then turned and walked away quickly. His figure soon disappeared around the corner of the hall, heading toward the side hall, walking with hurried steps. In the end, he still chose her. Coincidentally, the clear crowing of a rooster came from outside the hall. It pierced the silence of the underworld. That was the signal for the gate of rebirth to open. The hour to enter reincarnation had arrived. This crowing was like a talisman of liberation. gently landing on my heart. I slowly raised my hand and took off the red jade hairpin Xie Huai Chuan had put in my hair this morning. It was the memento of our 100th wedding anniversary. He said, "Red jade wards off evil. It will keep you safe year after year." My fingertips held the cold jade hairpin. I glanced at this hall, decorated with lanterns and streamers. Glanced at those minor ghosts still kneeling on the ground. Glanced at the table full of delicacies. And finally, glanced in the direction where Xie Huai Chuan had left. There wasn't a hint of lingering attachment left in my eyes. I gently placed the red jade hairpin on the table. And step by step, walked toward the outside of the hall, toward the gate of rebirth. With every step I took, the shackles on me lightened. With every step I took, the heaviness in my heart eased. With every step I took, my pace became lighter. As if I had shed a 1,000-year-old lock. I could finally take a breath. The red lanterns outside still hung high, reflecting my lonely shadow. The wind of the underworld blew gently, ruffling my long hair, carrying the slight chill of the river Lethe. But it could no longer disturb the peace in my heart. In the direction of Juseng Hall lay our memories of 1,000 years. But those memories had ultimately become the past. There was no going back. Until I stood by the gate of rebirth, looking at that door glowing with a faint white light. Behind the door was an unknown reincarnation. A new life where all past burdens are forgotten. For the first time I felt that this cold, lonely underworld actually had a bit of warmth. But this warmth had nothing to do with Xie Huai Chuan. Nothing to do with 1,000 years of companionship. It only had to do with my impending liberation. In the next instant, I closed my eyes, faced the white light of the gate of rebirth, and jumped straight down. From now on, cross the vast mountains and rivers, from the highest heavens to the deepest underworld, the person named Fu Yu will no longer exist. There will no longer be the Fu Yu who, for Xie Huai Chuan, gave up the prosperity of the mortal world and stayed in the cold underworld for 1,000 years. There will no longer be the Fu Yu who believed his eternal promises, only to be betrayed in the end. The gale roared in my ears, carrying a bone-chilling cold, making my cheeks sting. My body kept falling, flying toward the end of reincarnation. Just then, a heart-wrenching cry came from behind. That voice was full of panic, full of fear, full of disbelief. It pierced through the gale and reached my ears clearly. "Ayu." It was Xie Huai Chuan's voice. I don't know if it was heaven's mercy, or if the last shred of obsession in my heart hadn't dissipated. After jumping into the gate of rebirth, I didn't immediately enter reincarnation. My body seemed to be held up by an invisible force, stopping in midair. I only heard a faint sigh by my ear. That sigh carried a hint of compassion and a hint of helplessness. Then my soul gently floated up, lifted by a soft wind. Hovering above the gate of rebirth, I looked down at everything below from a height. I saw Xie Huai Chuan's figure rushing over like a madman. His clothes were disheveled. His hair was a mess. Where was the nobility and majesty of the king of hell? The panic in his eyes almost swallowed him whole. He lunged toward the gate of rebirth, reaching out his hand, trying to catch my falling figure. But his fingertips only touched the icy air. He caught nothing. His body slammed heavily against the barrier of the gate of rebirth, making a muffled thud. The barrier rippled with a faint shimmer, pushing him back. He staggered back a few steps, nearly falling over. The color drained from his face bit by bit, leaving it deathly pale. The once incomparably noble, high and mighty king of hell now looked like a lost child. He stood helplessly by the gate of rebirth, staring blankly at the door glowing with white light, as if he wanted to see through it. His gaze swept across the ground, and when he saw the red jade earring I had dropped, his body shuddered violently. Even his fingertips were trembling. He stepped forward quickly, bent down, and carefully picked up that earring. His fingertips gently caressed the patterns on it. His movements were as tender as if he were touching a rare treasure. He was most familiar with this earring. It was during our wedding that he had personally put it on me. The red jade was carved into the shape of a lotus, with a tiny night-luminescent pearl embedded in the center. He had searched through the 3 realms to find such a treasure. He said, "This earring, 'tis the only one in the world worthy of my Au. Au." Xie Huai Chuan called my name over and over again. His voice was hoarse, trembling heavily. His eyes were gradually stained with panic, fear, and despair. A thought he couldn't believe, yet had to face, rose wildly in his heart. His Au was really gone. She had truly entered reincarnation, leaving him all alone. At this moment, Xie Huai Chuan's face was even paler than the drowning ghosts who had just crawled out of the river Lethe. His lips trembled, but he couldn't utter a single word. He clutched that red jade earring tightly, his knuckles turning white, almost crushing it. His fingertips continued to tremble. Even his voice was trembling uncontrollably. He looked at the person standing beside him, Xiao Zheng, the clerk in charge of the Gate of Rebirth, with a final glimmer of hope in his voice, as if seeking confirmation, or perhaps just deceiving himself. Just now, the one who just entered the cycle of rebirth was... Who was it? Was it? Xiao Zheng, standing before him, lowered his head. He didn't dare look into those bloodshot eyes. His voice was crisp, yet it carried a trace of subtle irony. Word by word, he spoke clearly. "My lord, it was Lady Fuyu." As soon as the words fell, Xie Huai Chuan's pupils shrank instantly, as if struck by a bolt of lightning. The blood in his entire body seemed to freeze. His legs gave out. He could no longer support himself, and he slumped to his knees. His knees hit the cold bluestone floor hard, making a dull thud. But he seemed to feel nothing, only clutching that earring tightly, staring blankly at the Gate of Rebirth. At this moment, all color drained from Xie Huai Chuan's face. He was as pale as a sheet. Where was the man who once awed the world and made 100 ghosts submit? He was nothing more than a pitiful man who had lost his beloved. He struggled to get up, but his body felt as if all its strength had been drained. Several attempts were all in vain. He grabbed the clerk's collar and yanked him violently toward himself. His eyes were webbed with bloodshot veins. He roared with a voice bordering on hysteria. "What nonsense are you talking about? How could Au enter the cycle of rebirth? How is that possible? She loves me so much. She said we would be together for every lifetime. She would never leave me alone. You're lying to me. You must be lying." His roar carried a deep sense of despair, echoing beside the Gate of Rebirth, startling the crows on the branches. Even the flowing waters of the river Lethe seemed to slow down a little. I floated in midair, watching his hysterical state. I couldn't help but let out a cold sneer. Indeed, just as I once believed Xie Huai Chuan's vows without a doubt. I gave up my next life, gave up the warmth of the mortal world, and chose to stay in the cold, lonely underworld, to accompany him day after day, to cook for him, to smooth away the exhaustion between his brows, to guard that empty Juseng palace for him. Together for 1,000 years, Xie Huai Chuan was probably very certain too, that I would never leave him, certain that I would be like a vine, always clinging to his side, certain that no matter what he did, I would always choose to forgive. But he forgot that a heart can grow cold, that love can dissipate. 1,000 years of deep affection cannot withstand repeated perfunctoriness and betrayal. Xie Huai Chuan seemed to realize something. He suddenly let go of the clerk's collar, leaning against the cold bluestone floor, gasping for breath. The boundless pressure of the King of Hell surged forth. The surrounding ghosts were all pressed to the ground, not even daring to lift their heads. The bluestone floor by the gate of rebirth actually cracked under the force of this pressure. It was as if a haze had covered the world. The signs of an impending storm became more obvious. He suppressed the anxiety and despair in his heart. A flash of ruthlessness crossed his eyes. He squeezed out a few words. His voice cold. Speak. Where exactly did you take Ayu? Is she still here in the underworld? Is she just throwing a tantrum with me? The clerk was pressed to the ground by the pressure, unable to rise. A trace of blood leaked from the corner of his mouth, but he still lifted his head, with a hint of mockery still in his eyes. Looking at Xie Huai Chuan. My lord. Lady Fuyu entered the cycle of rebirth voluntarily. Her signature is on the ledger of rebirth. She signed it 7 days ago. No one forced her. No one stopped her. It was her own choice. To leave you. Before he could finish, Xie Huai Chuan's personal aide, Longju, came with the ledger. Stumbling all the way. His forehead was covered in sweat. His face deathly pale. Even his breathing was trembling. Longju bowed respectfully, not daring to meet Xie Huai Chuan's gaze. He only held out the yellowed ledger. The ledger of rebirth carved with the laws of heaven before Xie Huai Chuan. His voice was nervous, extremely cautious. My lord, on this ledger of rebirth, it is indeed Lady Fuyu's name. The handwriting is hers. Even the birth date and the date of death match perfectly. Xie Huai Chuan reached out with a trembling hand and took the ledger of rebirth. His fingertips brushed over the yellowed pages. When he saw those familiar characters, Fuyu, he felt as if he'd been struck by lightning. His body swayed, teetering on the edge of collapse. He nearly fell to the ground. That handwriting. It was the handwriting he had looked at for 1,000 years. Every stroke was gentle and graceful, just like her. But now, this handwriting was like a sharp knife, stabbing ruthlessly into his heart, dripping with fresh blood. So, the person who just jumped into the cycle, it really was her. His voice was hoarse, like it had been rubbed with sandpaper. Every word carried a piercing pain. He felt blood welling up in his chest, almost ready to erupt. Near the gate of rebirth, lightning flashed and thunder roared. Dark clouds gathered, and a wild wind blew. The waters of the river Lethe surged, kicking up waves several stories high. The world of the underworld, because of this king's rage and despair, was falling apart. Longju knew this was bad. He knew Xie Huai Chuan was beyond furious and in extreme pain. He was the first to kneel, his voice trembling slightly, with the resolve of one facing death. Please calm your anger, my lord. However, Lady Fuyu has indeed entered the cycle. The laws of heaven are absolute. Once the name is written, there is no turning back. Once one enters the gate of rebirth, the past is all gone. After saying the last word, Longju prostrated himself, ready for death. Filled with despair, he had followed Xie Huai Chuan for 1,000 years, but had never seen his master like this. So wretched, so desperate. The past is all gone. These 4 words were like a death warrant, slamming hard against Xie Huai Chuan's heart. So, she has completely forgotten our past. Forgotten 1,000 years of companionship. Forgot the tender moments of intimacy. Forgotten those vows of eternal life. Forgotten him, the king of hell. Forgotten this cold underworld. In the cycle of rebirth, she will have a new life, new memories, a new lover. There will never be another Fuyu. Xie Huai Chuan let out a muffled groan. The blood surging in his chest could no longer be suppressed. He suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood, staining the brocade robe before him, and staining that ledger of rebirth. That mouthful of blood, it felt as if his internal organs had been displaced. The pain was so great he nearly fainted. Then, what about me? He spoke with a tremble, his voice thick with despair. Like a lost child. Will she completely forget me? Reincarnated. My Ayu. Will she fall in love with another man? Just as she once loved me? Will she cook for someone else? Style their hair and paint their brows? Will she make eternal vows to another? A profound sense of despair swept over him like a rising tide, swallowing him whole in an instant. He curled up on the cold stone floor, clutching that red jade earring tightly, burying his face in his knees. His shoulders trembled slightly as he let out stifled sobs. Hey, you. Please stop being angry with me, okay? He choked out the words, his voice breaking. I was wrong. I was truly wrong. Please come back, okay? I'll never lie to you again. I'll never see her again. I've torn down the side palace. I've cast her into the depths of hell. I've uprooted every jasmine flower in the underworld. I'll only stay by your side. Okay? Hey, you. I can't live without you. Xie Huai Chuan could no longer speak. Only a few choked sobs escaped his throat. That sound was suppressed and desperate, like a wounded lone wolf in a deserted corner, licking his own wounds. Floating in midair, I watched his agony and his tear-stained face. My heart felt only a sense of relief. No hatred, no resentment, only the peace of things finally being settled. 1,000 years of deep affection could not, in the end, withstand the coldness of reality. Now, he is tasting the same heartache and despair I once did. I suppose it's the cycle of karma. Retribution is never wrong. Then, a faint blue glow appeared on my body, shrouding me completely. It was the power of reincarnation, slowly erasing the last of my past memories. Beside the gate of rebirth, the rebirth stone, carved with the laws of heaven, suddenly emitted a dazzling light. Images began to appear on its surface. They were memories of my life. From meeting in our youth, to falling in love and marrying, to my soul returning to the underworld. Every little detail of 1,000 years surfaced. As each event was shown, I would forget it. The attachments in my heart faded bit by bit. In the images, I was 17. I was poor at embroidery, unable to even stitch a decent sachet. When Xie Huai Chuan saw this, he took the needle and thread with a smile. Clumsily, he embroidered a wedding dress for me. Red silk as the base, with lotus flowers in gold thread. Though the stitches weren't delicate, they were full of heart. His face flushed red as he handed the dress to me. His voice was sincere. Hey, you. When I achieve success and fame, I will use a grand sedan chair to marry you. In the images, I was 19. Dressed in that red wedding gown, wearing the phoenix crown and robes, I became his bride. On our wedding night, the red candles burned bright. He held my hand and vowed we would be together, life after life, never to part. But before the words had even settled, assassins burst into the bridal chamber. To protect me, he took a fatal sword strike meant for me. He collapsed in my arms, blood staining my red wedding dress. He looked at me and said with a smile, Hey, you. Don't be afraid. I will wait for you. In every lifetime, I will always wait for you. In the images, after his death, after he died, his soul returned to the underworld. But he refused to drink the soup of oblivion. He stubbornly stood on the road to the springs, day after day, waiting for me year after year, enduring the wind and rain, and the freezing waters of the river of forgetfulness. He never wavered. When others asked why he wouldn't reincarnate, he said, I must wait for AU. In life I was hers, and in death I am her ghost. For all eternity, it will always be so. In the images, for the next 40 years, I cared for his parents and family in the mortal world. I kept our promise until my life force was spent and my soul returned to the underworld. And he, during those 40 years, through his own cultivation and power, maneuvered through the underworld, eventually becoming the formidable king of hell. He gave me the grandest wedding imaginable. A grand sedan chair, and miles of red silk. All the lonely souls and ghosts of the underworld came to celebrate with us. He held me, whispering in my ear, "Hey you, I've finally waited long enough for you. From now on, I will never let you suffer again." In the images, the two of us lived in perfect harmony at Juseng Palace. He would paint my brows, and I would grind ink for him. He planted a courtyard full of jasmine for me, and I made his favorite lotus seed soup. Those days were gentle and beautiful. They were, in my 1,000 years, my most precious memories. Watching the scenes of our past love, I smiled with a calm heart. That beauty did truly exist once. It's just that later, a heart that changed destroyed all that was beautiful. Meanwhile, Xie Huai Chuan stood before the rebirth stone, watching those images, with tears streaming down his face. The king of hell, always noble and peerless, who never showed weakness to anyone, could actually shed tears. He could actually look so pathetic. He raised his hand, trying to touch me in the images, but his fingertips only met cold light and shadow. That beautiful past is gone forever. Until the rebirth stone showed the scene from that night. He and Lingered Xuan were in the side palace. The lights flickered. Behind the warm red curtains, he held Lingered Xuan, tender and intimate, while I, covered in bruises, with a badly swollen ankle and scraped skin on my hands, stood wretchedly outside the room, listening to the sounds of their passion, watching their intertwined shadows on the window. With tears streaming down my face, Xie Huai Chuan froze on the spot. His eyes were full of shock and deep disbelief. He opened his mouth, but couldn't say a word. His face turned deathly pale in an instant. He likely never imagined that I would discover his affair with Lingered Xuan. He likely always thought that his perfunctory behavior and betrayal were hidden perfectly. He likely thought I would be kept in the dark forever, always guarding that Juseng Palace, waiting for him to return. The images continued to shift, showing Lingered Xuan dressed as a dancer, toasting me at the birthday banquet. Her voice echoed through the rebirth stone, ringing clearly beside the gate of rebirth. Every word was like a sharp knife, stabbing deep into Xie Huai Chuan's heart. "Just now, while you were asleep, he had me 3 times. He said making love near Juseng Palace was exceptionally thrilling. He said your personality is too dull, and that you're utterly boring." With every word, Xie Huai Chuan's face grew more grim, and the aura around him grew colder. The guilt and despair in his eyes deepened further. In the end, his eyes turned bloodshot, and the magic power within him surged out uncontrollably. His robes fluttered wildly in the gale. His hair was disheveled, and he looked terrifying. This was the precursor to his violent rage, a fury that, in 1,000 years, had never been seen before. "Ah!" He let out a roar, a sound that shook heaven and earth. The images on the rebirth stone shattered instantly, turning into specks of starlight that dissipated into the world. But immediately after, the rebirth stone glowed again, manifesting many small, cluttered memories. Those small things I had deliberately ignored, and those he had deliberately hidden, were now laid bare before him. For instance, Lingered Xuan would take those withered jasmine flowers, and specifically have her maid send them to Juseng Palace, to be placed by my window. She wanted me to look at those dying flowers and remember his past tenderness when he planted a courtyard of jasmine for me, only to contrast it with his current coldness. It felt like a knife to the heart. For instance, every time after they were intimate, a maid would coincidentally gossip outside my window. Their voices were just loud enough so that I could hear every word. They spoke of how well Lord Yama treated Lingered Xuan, of how much they loved each other, and how I was nothing but a discarded relic of the past, guarding an empty palace, living in self-delusion. For instance, he personally carved a jasmine hairpin for Lingered Xuan, searched the 3 realms for treasures for her, and filled the side palace with her favorite jasmine flowers. But for me, there was only endless perfunctoriness. Even my birthday. He could completely forget. Only to appease me. Did he hurriedly throw this birthday banquet? For instance, when I was sick, he used the excuse of being busy with work, refusing to even look at me. Yet he stayed in the side palace with Lin Lingxuan, serving her tea and water, with the utmost tenderness. When I was sad, he never noticed. Yet he could spot Lin Lingxuan's unhappiness at a glance, exhausting every effort to make her smile. As more and more memory fragments surfaced, his hypocritical mask was peeled away bit by bit, and the last of my obsession was erased from my heart. I gradually forgot those past events. Forgot Xie Huai Chuan. Forgot Juseng Palace. And forgot 1,000 years of companionship. My body felt lighter and lighter. My heart became clear and pure, leaving only the anticipation of a new life. The images on the rebirth stone suddenly turned black, and there were no more visuals. Huai Chuan. A delicate female voice came from the distance, tinged with worry and a hint of urgency. Xie Huai Chuan suddenly became agitated. He snapped his head up, looking toward the direction of the voice. A glimmer of hope flashed in his eyes. In his days, he even harbored a fantasy. Could AU be playing a joke on him? Maybe she hadn't entered reincarnation at all, but was just angry and had hidden herself away. Now that she heard his call, she was coming back for him. Could it be his AU, who loved him so much? How could she really leave him behind? But as Xie Huai Chuan looked over with eyes full of hope, he realized the person who came was not the Fuyu he longed for, but Lin Lingxuan, whom he had just banished to the side palace. Lin Lingxuan wore a plain dress, with tear stains still on her face. She ran over hurriedly, and seeing Xie Huai Chuan's wretched state, a flash of surprise crossed her eyes. She then stepped forward quickly, wanting to help him up. Huai Chuan, what's wrong? Why are you kneeling here? Are you feeling unwell? The moment he saw Lin Lingxuan, Xie Huai Chuan's eyes turned so red they seemed to bleed. The aura around him was so oppressive it was hard to breathe. That rage and despair instantly turned into a bone-chilling killing intent, sweeping toward Lin Lingxuan. It's you. He shoved Lin Lingxuan away, his voice cold and sharp, as if it were pulled from an ice cellar, filled with deep-seated hatred. It's all because of you. You're the one who drove AU away. You destroyed everything between AU and me. The pale blue magic around him, carrying a thick killing intent, pounced toward Lin Lingxuan like a tide. Lin Lingxuan had no time to dodge, and was struck hard by the magic. Her body flew out like a broken kite, slamming heavily onto the cold stone floor. She was instantly battered and bruised, blood trickling from the corner of her mouth. She looked absolutely pathetic. Lin Lingxuan propped herself up, trying to crawl back up, but she was trembling with pain. She looked at Xie Huai Chuan, her eyes full of grievance and resentment. Huai Chuan, I did all this because I love you. I just love you too much. That's why I couldn't stand her monopolizing you for so long. She had you for 1,000 years. I just wanted a tiny bit of your love. Is that wrong? She knelt down with a face full of resentment, grabbing the hem of his robe, pleading bitterly. Huai Chuan, I know I was wrong. I won't do it again. Please forgive me this once, okay? We can be happy from now on. I'll be just like her. I'll serve you well. I'll stay by your side. And I'll never make you angry again. What kind of thing do you think you are? Xie Huai Chuan looked at her face with total indifference, his words laced with ice, filled with deep disdain and mockery. You dared to plot against AU. You dared to compare yourself to her. You aren't even fit to carry her shoes. He raised his hand, violently shaking off her grip. The killing intent in his eyes nearly consumed her. I remember telling you. AU is my life. She is the one I've cherished in the palm of my hand for 1,000 years. No one is allowed to touch her. You drove her away. You destroyed my life. And you still want to take her place. Look at yourself, do you think you're worthy? With that, his gaze became terrifyingly cold, with a hint of ruthlessness. He raised his foot and kicked Lin Lingxuan violently to the ground. Lin Lingxuan's body flew out like a broken kite, crashing into the rebirth stone, making a dull thud. Then she spat out blood and collapsed on the ground. She could no longer crawl up and could only groan in agony. Xie Huai Chuan didn't spare her a single glance and coldly ordered Long Jiu, throw her into the 19th level of Avicii Hell. The sentence is eternal. She is never to be reincarnated. The 19th level of Avicii Hell, a place even more terrifying than the 18 levels of hell. In the underworld, not a blade of grass grows, but the 19th level of Avicii Hell is even more grim and horrific. It is shrouded in malevolent energy around, housing only the most heinous ghosts. Each one carries tens of thousands of lives on their hands, guilty of unpardonable crimes. Every ghost in the 19th level of Avicii Hell suffers inhuman torture day and night. They cannot live, and they cannot die. Being sliced 1,000 times, thrown into boiling oil, being disemboweled alive, burned by fierce flames, pierced by freezing ice. These are all just minor punishments there. In that place, even death is a luxury. One can only endure endless pain, day after day, year after year, until my soul was scattered. When I dazedly regained consciousness, what I heard was this sentence from Xie Huai Chuan. I felt a sense of astonishment in my heart. I never thought he would be so ruthless to Lin Lingxuan. He actually wanted to cast her into the 19th level of Avicii Hell, never to be reincarnated for all eternity. Hearing this, Lin Lingxuan completely panicked. She no longer had her usual delicate and pouting manner. Only endless fear and despair remained. She began to beg for mercy with a heart-wrenching cry, her voice hoarse, filled with a thick, tearful tone. Huai Chuan, I was wrong. I really know I was wrong now. Please don't cast me into the 19th level of Avicii Hell. I shouldn't have provoked her. I'll apologize to her. I'll kowtow and admit my fault. I beg of you. Huai Chuan, don't send me to the 19th level. I'm scared. I'm really scared. She kowtowed desperately toward Xie Huai Chuan, her forehead hitting the cold blue stone floor. Fresh blood flowed freely, but Xie Huai Chuan's face remained cold throughout, without a hint of pity in his eyes. Xie Huai Chuan watched with cold eyes as Long Jiu dragged her away, as if he were looking at a dead person, an insignificant stranger. She screamed with all her might, calling out his name, crying out for mercy. But in the end, she was dragged away coldly by Long Jiu, disappearing around the corner of the Gate of Rebirth, heading toward the 19th level of Avicii Hell. Those cries grew further and further away, until they were finally swallowed by the howling wind. Xie Huai Chuan didn't spare her another glance. He only stood up slowly and staggered over to the Gate of Rebirth. His gaze was fixed intently on that door, glowing with white light, as if he intended to stand there forever, waiting for me to return. For some reason, I never actually entered the cycle of reincarnation. Instead, I was pulled by an invisible force, following behind Xie Huai Chuan. I watched him grow weaker day by day. I watched him, step by step, walk toward destruction. Ever since I disappeared, Xie Huai Chuan never smiled again. There wasn't a trace of expression left on his face. Every day he was lifeless, like a shell without a soul. He still handled the affairs of the underworld, but he no longer had his former efficiency and vigor. He often faced the direction of Juseng Palace, staring blankly for the entire day. Even when minor ghosts came to report on matters, he remained oblivious. He was no longer the awe-inspiring king of hell. He was just a pitiful man who had lost his beloved. He traveled through the 6 realms, ignoring the laws of heaven, not hesitating to exhaust his own cultivation, trying to find any trace of me. Even if it were just a wisp of a soul, or a single breath of air, it would be enough. He went to the mortal world, visiting every place we had ever been. The bustling firework alleys, the water towns of Jiangnan, the great deserts of the north. In every single place, He left behind his lonely silhouette. He went to the river of forgetfulness, dredging it over and over again, hoping to find my soul. He went to Mengpo's manor, forcing Mengpo to hand over the antidote to her soup of oblivion, hoping to restore my memory. He went to the Hall of Reincarnation, wanting to alter the ledger of reincarnation, wanting to bring me back to his side. But the cycle of heaven has its own predestined path. How could a single king of hell control it all? Xie Huai Chuan dissipated most of his cultivation, exhausting 1,000 years of power. His hair began to turn gray, and his face gradually aged. Yet he never found a single trace of me, not even a hint of my presence. He spent his days in deep depression, drowning his sorrows in wine, getting himself dead drunk. He stayed in Juseng Palace all day. Everything in the palace remained exactly as it was when I left. My clothes, my vanity mirror, my teacup were all left untouched in their original places. He would often hold my clothes, calling my name over and over again. His voice hoarse, his face covered in tears. He would sit on the stone bench in the courtyard, looking at those withered jasmine flowers, staring blankly for the whole day. Then he would suddenly fly into rage, pulling up all the jasmine in the yard, throwing them to the ground, and trampling them fiercely. He would shout, "Ayu doesn't like jasmine anymore. Ayu hates jasmine. Pull them all out. Burn them all." But after pulling them out, he would crouch on the ground again, carefully picking up those withered branches. Like a child, sobbing quietly. When he had time, he would personally go to the 19th level of Avicii Hell to watch Lin Lingxuan endure endless torture, watching her state of being better off dead. He didn't hit her, nor did he scold her. He just watched silently, without a shred of emotion in his eyes. Only when she begged for mercy would he say coldly, "This is what you owe Ayu. You must pay it back." Day after day, year after year, his cultivation was completely exhausted, and his lifespan had reached its end. His once jet black hair had become as white as snow. His once handsome face had become aged and haggard. His once upright posture had become stooped and bent. He no longer looked anything like the king of hell. That day, the sky was covered in dense clouds. The waters of the river of forgetfulness surged, and the wind of the underworld blew exceptionally cold. Xie Huai Chuan locked himself in Juseng Palace, refusing to let anyone near. From his robe, he took out the letter of divorce I had written long ago, the one I had given to him. The letter of divorce he had never opened. His hands trembled as he carefully opened the envelope. When he saw that familiar handwriting, and saw those, "Parting ways peacefully, each finding our own happiness," those 8 words, Xie Huai Chuan instantly burst into tears. He covered his face and began to wail uncontrollably, like a child who had done something wrong. He curled up on the floor, constantly murmuring apologies to me. "Ayu, I'm sorry. I was wrong. I was really wrong. Please come back, okay? I miss you so much. I really miss you so much." He apologized over and over again, calling my name repeatedly, his voice hoarse, filled with deep despair. Inside Juseng Palace, his cries echoed, desolate and mournful. I looked at the white-haired, haggard and weak Xie Huai Chuan, watching him curled up on the floor in pain. I sighed softly. If he had known it would end like this, why did he have to act that way back then? But people are always greedy. They never know how to cherish what they have. And only after they lose it do they feel deep regret. But in this world, there is no medicine for regret. Xie Huai Chuan seemed to hear my sigh. He jerked his head up, a flicker of light passing through his clouded eyes. He forced himself to sit up, searching everywhere for my figure. His voice trembled. "Ayu, is that you? Ayu, have you come back? Have you forgiven me?" He leaned against the wall, standing up bit by bit. He staggered around the palace, reaching out his hand, trying to touch me in the empty air. He kept crying out her name. "Hey, you. Please, won't you come out? Let me see you one last time. Just one look. My greatest wish in this life is to see you once more. And to beg for your forgiveness. Hey, you. I'm begging you." Muddy tears rolled down his cheeks, dripping onto the cold bluestone floor, shattering into tiny sparks of light. Just then, a beam of golden light spilled from the gate of rebirth, piercing through the windows of Juseng Hall, and falling upon me. Outside, a rooster crowed clearly once more. It was the final signal for reincarnation. I knew then that my time had come. This is it. I must truly embark on the path of rebirth now. To go and embrace what belongs to me. A brand new life. As the golden light enveloped me, and my body grew weightless. At the very moment I was to step into the cycle, I saw Xie Huai Chuan press that red jade earring to his chest. He looked toward the gate of rebirth, his eyes filled with unwilling longing. Finally, he slowly closed his eyes. Then, his body turned into a faint mist, dissipating into the air of Juseng Hall. His soul vanished between heaven and earth, leaving not a single trace behind. In the end, he followed me after all. In such a way, he ended his life, ending our entanglement of 1,000 years. I had no time to look at him, nor any time for sentiment. My body grew lighter, flying toward the golden light, flying toward the end of the cycle. The past is forgotten. The old days gone like smoke. This is for the best. When I next open my eyes, I will have a bright, new life. There will be warm sunshine, a bustling world of people, and a heart full of joy. No more cold underworld. No more Xie Huai Chuan. And no more Fu Yu. From now on, year after year, there will only be peace, and there will only be happiness.